All right, we're live. This is episode 63 of the Deconstruction podcast brought to you by Jobtable, the simplest way to grow and manage your construction business. Let's kick it off here with a quick review. This came in, I think yesterday or today from Daniil. This is a Cold Fuel. It's an HVAC company in Toronto. So we had a great experience working with this company. The installation process was smooth and the team was professional, knowledgeable, and easy to deal with from start to finish. Costa took the time to explain the system and made sure everything was set up properly. Great CRM to run the business with. Thank you, Daniil. I just wanted to share something. We just launched, for those thinking about using Jobtable or existing clients, we launched a really cool feature a couple of days ago. So two-way SMS. So if you're a contractor that still uses your personal phone number to send out texts and invoices and communicate with your clients, you can now have your dedicated business number through Jobtable, where you can now start communicating directly with your clients inside the app, send out quotes, invoices, schedule reminders. So it just streamlines that whole communication process. So really excited for that feature. A lot of our clients love it. So if you're thinking about that, that is available now. So check it out, jobtable.com. With that, let's get into it. Today we got someone who operates at a level that most people in this city don't see. When you drive past a major construction site, a cell tower going up or a rooftop HVAC unit getting crane into place, there's a good chance his company made that happen. He's the owner of Lift All Crane, one of the biggest, most respected crane service companies in Southern Ontario. A full fleet of mobile cranes, a team of elite operators, and a business that's built on precision, trust, and just the kind of expertise that keeps this city's construction industry moving. We're going to talk about what it actually takes to build and run a crane company, the realities of hiring skilled operators in this market, some of the big bets you have to make on equipment, and just the mindset behind running a business where the margin for error is literally zero. So whether you're running a crane company, a trades business, or any kind of operation in construction, this episode is going to hit. So please welcome Jeff Burke to the
Thank
podcast.
you, guys. Thank you.
Jeff.
Welcome to the
What
show.
an introduction. I should have, I'm going to bring Costa to all my sales meetings. That's awesome.
Anytime. It's well deserved. It's well deserved.
Yeah, have him go in the meeting first before you walk in.
Right? Exactly.
And you
That'd
show
be
up
awesome.
5 minutes later. You show up 5
I'm gonna
minutes
be
later.
clapping as I walk in. All right, I got the belt. So
No, we're excited to get into it, man. There's a lot of topics we want to dive into, but take a minute or two just for those who don't know about you, just who you are, what you do.
sure. So I guess a little background. I'm actually a third generation crane operator. My family's been in the industry since the 60s. So I've grown up in and around a crane family, and so have my parents. And so my grandfather started a company called Amherst Crane in 1963. So cute story. My son went into school. He's 10 years old a couple weeks ago, and was telling everybody, "Hey, my grandpa or my great grandfather helped build the CN Tower," and all his friends didn't believe it, and they were all shooting him down. So I called up my mom. I said, "Mom, Maxie, his friends don't believe that we helped build the CN Tower." So she sent over the article right out of the Toronto front page of the Toronto Star. You saw the cranes, Amherst cranes in the foundation. So we got the teacher made him do a whole show and tell for the class and everything. So he's like a little rock star, 10 years old. He's going to be probably a fourth generation crane operator and running a crane business in the city. So,
That's amazing.
he's got aspirations to be an F1 driver. I'm sure you see me wearing the Ferrari shirt, but I got
But
him
it's the
into
wrong team. But it's the
yeah,
wrong team, Joe.
exactly. Yeah. You never know. You never know. Mercedes is taking it this year, but I actually love Kimi Antonelli. I hope he does win. But
Yeah.
you know what? I decided, maybe a black sheep in the family, so you might call it. But my brother and I decided probably over 20 years ago now that we'd go off and just kind of do our own thing, and branched off from the family and started Lift All Crane in 2007, so almost 20 years. And we caught a couple of lucky breaks. I got right place at the right time. Ended up buying a company called Earl's Crane, who was in the business for about 20 years. He used to work for my mom back in the day, so he knew me and my brother, was carrying my older brother around on his shoulders. He was an operator for Amherst for many years. So it's kind of like a, very tight niche little market. Everybody knows everybody in the crane industry. But that was a big boost for us. We ended up doubling and tripling in size literally overnight. We took a good run at it. Was all in for quite a few years. Barely taking home paychecks, just doing what it took to expand the business and get it while the getting was good. In those days, we're talking in the 2010, 2012. You guys might remember, if you look back, the exchange rates were 1-to-1 almost with the US dollar. So we were buying, a crane that would cost $1 million now today would cost $1.4 million. So everything's kind of based off the US dollar. We were very lucky to be able to be in a time when it was cheaper to expand. The interest rates were almost like mortgage rates. I was pulling in, with the right connections and kind of doing my thing, taking out the guys at certain banks, going to the hockey game or the Blue Jay games with them and networking and just kind of pitching them myself, just kind of the way I'm doing to you right now. They really supported me back in those days. We were getting like 3% interest rates. It was unbelievable. It was such a good time to grow the business. So we really hit the ground running and ran with it. So now we're here we are today. We've got about 20 cranes. Five different crane companies that we own. I've even branched off into tower crane erection. So not only do we supply the mobiles to erect the towers or dismantle them off the big skyscrapers, but I've got a team, my team of boys, it's called the Erectors. We're kicking ass and taking numbers. Literally, hit the ground running, took the city by storm. I'm wearing a big target on my back. We're out there, eating up all the work because we're young, hungry, and talented young guys that are up there, flying high in the sky, banging pins out and taking cranes apart 700 feet in the air and pulling them down. And it's just, it's something that you have to see.
Yeah, I love it, man. Okay,
Yeah.
that's so much to get into there, man. So let's start with the state of the economy, right? You mentioned, you had that opportunity wherein, things were 1-to-1. That's when you saw that spot to invest. How has that changed now? Like you said, 140
So
Canadian to USD. How does that affect like your investment decisions and how you're thinking about growth right now?
Well, I mean, everybody knows we're in a tough economy right now. A lot of my customers, like say, we're so diverse. We've been in business long enough, and we deal with every aspect of the industry that I probably say I've got over 1,000 customers. We're dealing with, everything from HVAC to roofing to residential, commercial, industrial, groundworks. We're putting culverts in under, they're rebuilding bridges. We're putting bridge girders in. We're doing tower cranes. So we deal with every aspect of anything you can imagine you could use a crane for. So all of my customers are telling me they're slow. That we're actually having the busiest, which is totally, it wouldn't have been expected. I wouldn't have been able to forecast it, but we're having the busiest year we've ever had. So possibly maybe a little bit of the help with the government investing into the infrastructure, but that's a double-edged sword because we've lost a lot of crane operators because of these projects that they're, like this Darlington nuclear power plant you see on the commercials, how they're, all this small reactor stuff. They're going around stealing all the crane operators from all the companies in town. I've lost like 3 guys in the last 6 or 12 months. It's to me, it doesn't even make any sense. These guys are taking a pay cut to go and work on a lower schedule, I guess, anticipating that we were going to be slow, but we're having the busiest year we've ever had. So anyway, I guess everybody kind of rolls the dice and picks their future, but the future seems to be strong and prosperous with us. We're busy as heck.
Yeah, no,
With that said, now hasn't been a time when I would be investing in any new equipment. The interest rates last year were ridiculously high. They have kind of calmed a little bit, but the exchange rate isn't it's not the best time to be expanding. As I said, 2012, 2015, those were all great years. We were very busy. COVID years were off the chart for us. Again, half the city was staying home. It became like an open city for us to be doing all the infrastructure work, and we, where we would have to usually wait 2 or 3 weeks for a permit. Everything was getting approved right away. Get in, get it done. We were considered an essential service. So we did not have to, shut our business down. So if hydro lines go down, or if you could imagine any type of major catastrophe, something to do with power generation, hospitals, HVAC units go in hospitals, what are they going to let the people freeze to death? No, the cranes have to go to work. So our guys, I remember they made these little memes. It was cute. You see, Big Bird on a horse and carriage, and it was said, the city's shut down and crane operators are, 5 a.m. we're rolling, like it was, the guys thought they were cowboys because everybody else was stuck at home and we were still out there going to work every day.
I love that. Interesting. So busiest time right now, one of the busiest seasons you said. So you're saying you contribute a lot of that right now to like government projects?
I wouldn't say a lot of it. I just think that's helped. To be honest with you, we're just so diversified that we've been lucky that we've kept busy. So obviously we always have a slowdown in the winter. So January, February, and March are always our slow months. Right up to Christmas, we are gangbuster, go time. Guys are pulling their hair out. Everybody's fighting to get to who's going to be able to take some time off. After Christmas, we always generally get the bad weather, the holiday break. So I wouldn't say the last couple of months has been ridiculously crazy, very average. But the 6 months before that were record-breaking numbers. I was 20 to 25% busier than any other year in the past.
Nice.
Well, I wanted to jump in there for a sec. I think a key thing that you said there, Jeff, is being diverse, right? And
Yes.
Charlie and I, we talk about this all the time on our plumbing company on why we're going on our 17th year and why we've always been busy is being diverse, because if you put all your eggs in one basket in the industry, whether you're doing residential or whether you're doing commercial, whether you're doing industrial, high rise, one thing changes and your company's suffering. So the best thing to do, and the reason I'm bringing this up is for our listeners, the best thing to do is to be diverse, because when one sector is slow or it's falling, like right now, high rise, where you can see an immense amount of guys at home and not knowing what to do, and they've never done any other.
The farming industry's been suffering, right up until 6 months ago. The skies were full of tower cranes. Our erection business was constantly, we'd probably be doing 5, maybe even 6 for every 10 tower cranes were going up versus coming down. Now it's probably 1 in 10. So that's a huge change in the going up every week and maybe 2 or 3 coming down every week. Now it's we'll put up one some month, and the rest of the month we're pulling tower cranes down or doing servicing or whatever. So we've been keeping very busy, but I do foresee there being a bit of a lull next year for the erection side, and we have to figure out how to diversify. So there's other ideas that we've been putting on the plate, and how to diversify, not just in the service side, but possibly other types of erections. Like Costa spoke to cell towers, wind. There's going to be some wind coming in the next year or two. So we flew some of our boys out to see how to do I have some companies I've worked with for many years doing wind work. We're erecting the big windmills. So I put the team out there to kind of catch a grasp of how it's done, and if they'd be able to grasp it, it's very essentially, if you're erecting one type of tower, I'm sure you can figure out how to do anything.
Yeah.
Your boys are used to flying high in the sky.
But that's what I wanted to say. I think the key is being diverse
Yes.
and not being complacent, because when times are good,
Yes.
everybody falls into a niche and they just
Yep.
stick in that niche. And
Yep.
what they don't understand is if you're not building to also get into other sectors when hard times like this come, it's devastating to a company. And also, on one last note, not only knowing you personally, but obviously having worked together with you, I think that, as business owners, no matter what it is that you're doing, no matter what sector you're in, like you said, your boots on the ground, and just working with you personally, I know that you're always extremely helpful in guiding, right? Like, because we have a certain way we want things done, but obviously you as a crane operator, and like you said, for anybody listening too that is in Southern Ontario, you might want to listen to this guy if you do need a crane, because you're third generation, right? So it's like
Yes.
it's like no better person to bring on site and give you the outlook on how this is actually supposed to go.
Yeah, it's like even when you notice it, like I guess for things that come naturally to me, I guess because I grew up, around the dinner table as a little kid talking about it, everything becomes second nature to me. Whereas, we get a lot of apprentices coming into the trade, and it feels like, oh, like this seems like something you should just know. It's common knowledge, but no, it's like I have to have that patience to understand that a lot of people are green. You really got to kind of to be a good teacher. You've got to have the patience to explain everything properly, like they're a young school child, because at the end of the day, this is a business where assumption could be the mother of all fuck ups. And sorry if I'm not supposed to
No,
swear,
no,
but
you're allowed to.
so one of those things where, better you ask questions than assume. I try to give the apprentices all that pep talk. Don't feel stupid. I don't want you to come out here and, try, make a mistake or damage equipment or risk hurting somebody or yourself. Better you ask before you do, because, again, assumption is the mother of all fuck ups. It's just, there, like you were saying earlier in the conversation, there is very, very little margin for error, and catastrophic failures and mistakes could cause death in the industry. There's been fatalities in the industry, and knock on wood, we've never had any issues, but it's like I've seen and been around long enough to hear the horror stories of bad things that have happened.
So
Jeffrey, one
last
thing
thing.
to add quickly about like diversifying, and I think that this is not obvious for everyone, is that you can't wait to diversify. It's all, people hear that and they say, yeah, if anything goes bad, I'll just jump into service, I'll just jump into commercial. But what I'm noticing now is we're seeing a lot of high-rise plumbers trying to jump into commercial. We're seeing a lot of these company owners who are now completely dead try to all of a sudden come into a completely different realm, essentially. These guys are struggling. You have some GCs that are picking up jobs or hiring the wrong plumbers, and these guys are just fucking everything up.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's because they just waited too long, right? So me and John, for example, we're not a service company by any means, but the volume of work that we've done in the last 17 years kind of forces us to do some service, right, in some capacity. And we've ramped it up at some points, and we've kind of slowed it down when it gets annoying and we're just busy with other things. But
sure,
we know how to do it, right? It's not like
yeah.
if things go south, it's not like we're gonna kind of fucking, all right, we gotta buy 10 trucks and just start advertising, and we already have the contacts and we can ramp it up anytime we want. And I think that's like a very important key lesson for anybody listening to really take that in, because don't wait till it's too late, right? If you're a high-rise company, pick up some commercial jobs, get your feet wet, start a small service department, whatever the case may be. So when shit hits the fan, you're hitting the ground running.
Yeah, for me, I think I was very lucky. It kind of it came naturally, or I'm not sure what the right word is, but I kind of just I ran with it whenever a good opportunity presented itself. Like you said, don't be complacent. Just I took it and I ran with it. You gotta have a little bit of balls. You got to get out there and take risks, but being around it and being all in and boots on the ground. I always bet on black. I'm always betting on myself. It's not like I'm going to the casino and throwing money on a table. It's like, we don't accept failure. It's not an option.
Good, good. Yeah, you're taking calculated risks. That's what it is,
100%.
right?
100%.
And getting back to like what are we investing in right now? And I think you did bring it up without even noticing it. So from what I take, and I fully agree on this, and tell me if I'm putting words in your mouth here, Jeff, but right now, since the economy is tough, to take loans and to try to build your company in the sense of, I need new trucks, I need new cranes, I need new, new tools or whatever, might not be the right time to do that just because interest rates, the value of our dollar. And it doesn't matter, even to our listeners. Even to our listeners in the United States, like same thing. It's even though, they don't really have to worry too much about the dollar, but they got to worry about interest rates just like everybody else. It's not free money that's going around. So what is it that is the most key to invest in, right? That's what everybody always looks at. It's like, well, what do I do with my business? And I think you said it, where it's like, well, invest in your guys. Invest in the knowledge that they bring. Invest in, teaching them properly.
Yep.
And if your foremans are not at that level where they have the patience, invest in teaching them, right? Because I think right now everybody has to look at, instead of trying to grow the business in terms of value on the road, let's say with the trucks or with more cranes or whatever, invest on growing your business in the knowledge. Invest on that younger kid that you've had there for 2 years that you haven't had the time to sit there and fully train and dedicate some time. Maybe now's the time to do it, because that guy that's been there for 2 years, in 5 years might be a rock star, right? But if you don't give him a fair shot like you wanted once upon a time, at what point are you going to give him that shot? Or at what point are you going to dedicate the time to fully teach him? When the economy becomes good again and everything's full speed ahead, and then what's going to be your excuse at that point? Your excuse is
we're constantly in our business, we're constantly having to invest into training. We've always got apprentices that are going out with big cranes. We're training them to be operators. It takes 3 years to get an apprenticeship completed. They want 6,000 hours. They're trying to change that to 8,000 hours. If you were an apprentice, say, for example, on a crawler crane sitting out in the field, you're probably not going to really learn to do much of anything but being a one-trick pony. Not trying to, put anybody down, but in rental, which is what I do, it's like accelerated learning. By the time my apprentices are finished their first year, they're probably ahead of most third-year apprentices in the rest of the industry, just because we're at a different job site and a new challenge every single day. So it really is accelerated learning. You're never doing the same thing all day in and out and becoming a monotonous, like you're not a factory worker here. It's like there's a new challenge. Every job site has its own challenges, different types of lifts, different types of situations, where to set up, why to set up this way and not that way. Just paused on me there, but it's almost like every crane operator has to learn to be a salesman, as well. Like I've always, had this argument and told my brother, because he's incredible on a crane. The guy's one of the best crane operators in the city. He's definitely, I've seen him operate cranes with his hands behind his back. Like, he's incredible. But it takes more than just being capable on the controls and being the best crane operator. Is being able to communicate well with the customer, being able to be almost like a salesman out there, showing up early, making sure you're prepared for a job, having the right attitude, being a team player, training the apprentices. Do you work well with others? There's a million boxes to check off before you'll get my approval of saying who the best crane operator in the city is. You know what I mean? Everybody wants to talk about who is the best at pulling the levers. Well, guess what? Sometimes that's not the best operator. The best operator is the guy that checks off all the boxes and gets emails coming into my office saying, hey, that guy was a pleasure. What a great crane operator. Please send them back. Those are the guys that I can be the best salesman in the world, and I'm really good at opening doors, but it's really my team who keeps those doors open. These are the guys that are out in the field. They're out there on the front lines, and they are the ones that are going to keep the customers calling back. So, I can, walk around and try to talk, puff my shoulders up and talk about how successful I am. I'm not, I'm nothing without my team and my guys out in the front lines, my great office staff in the background who are getting the invoices out every day, who are doing the collections, trying to get the money and keep the wheels turning here. It's a team effort. The company takes more than just one person to figurehead and be out there calling the shots. I've had a lot of growing pains going through 20 years of being in business. I've had to learn the hard way sometimes. I've made mistakes, and I can admit to making mistakes. Nobody's perfect. And, the funniest part is when the people that like to sit back and talk about how they could do it better or to point out the mistakes you made. Well, guess what? It's easy to point out people's mistakes if they're the ones doing everything. You know what I mean? So, back to what we were talking about with the on the investment side of things. Right now, what I've noticed is the banks are really tightening up, and they're making it very difficult for all the businesses to function. So, whereas 10 years ago, it seemed like it was like they were hand over fist, competing to lend you money. They wanted me to blow up the business. I would throw out some projections at them. A common misconception that people don't realize is how expensive cranes actually are. Our smallest of boom trucks is probably over $300,000. Some of our cranes are worth $5 million. So a mid-sized crane like that everybody would look at, like an 80 or a 90-ton crane. An 80-ton crane is over $1 million. 90-ton crane, in 2010, as I said, that was about $1 million US. Now you're going to pay $1.4 million, $1.5 million easy for a 90-ton crane, buying it brand new. So, with that said, if you could imagine, our capital expenditures are huge. So, I personally believe that the city needs to work together to start getting the rates higher. We need to be able to charge more because we're constantly competing with, higher fuel prices, more taxes. Now we got carbon taxes, increasing fuel prices. It's like the government changed us last year from being off-road building machinery where we could use colored fuel. There was another 20-30% increase in fuel costs, license plate stickers, all the different types of safeties that have to be done every year. So here we are. We get hit with all of these huge cost increases, and everybody's rates are not increasing to complement the increases that we're being hit with. It hits the bottom line, and it makes the profitability in the company dwindle. So, the banks are constantly looking to monitor this, and they want their reports every monthly, quarterly, yearly. You got a situation in this type of business like this is digging really deep, but obviously I'm the right guy to talk to because it's my company, so it's the upper echelon of level of understanding. But let's just put it into perspective. You order a crane, your company probably doesn't end up paying, if I'm lucky, 60 days. Some people are taking 90 days, 120 days. Well, guess what? I pay my guys every single week. I pay my fuel, which is huge, every 2 weeks. I pay HST every month. I pay union dues every month. So just to kind of put it into perspective, my costs are constantly always there, but nobody's paying and for 3 to 4 months, well, that becomes a cash flow issue. That's really hard to operate a business without a huge line of credit. And the line of credit costs me money. So, collecting money fast enough is a challenge. This time of year, coming out of winter months, it's going to be, the next couple of months, we're going to be struggling, because being busy is like, and hopefully you can grasp this. It's in a nutshell. It's being very busy coming out of a winter time. So let's just say my business doubles. That's amazing. Okay, we're going to be making money, but guess what? That's also a double-edged sword, because all of those cost increases that I just talked to you about are all of a sudden right in my face, coming out of months when your bank is looking at your winter months and saying, "Oh, your line of credit is floating," depending on your sales. They're cutting your line of credit. Meanwhile, your costs are going up because you're twice as busy as usual. So I'm paying. HSD wants their money right away. The government source deductions they want their money right away. The union wants their money right away. The guys get paid every week or they don't come to work. And if you don't put fuel in the machines, guess what? the machines ain't rolling out of the yard. So cash flow, very, very tough in this business, especially if you consider, I've been in the business for a while. We're getting close to that point where a lot of my equipment's paid off, but for a lot of years, capital expenditures were huge. Not on top of all of that, we had our crane payments to make every month. If you're talking about a crane payment on a $2 or $3 million crane, that's 50 or 60.
After decades in the industry, right? Do you think in the last few years has been the most difficult time to operate a business here in Canada and in this province, like with all this like extra layers, red tape, more
Yep,
taxes?
100%. Especially with the increases in costs. Let me just give you another example. Like, let's just say you guys have an HVAC unit going up. There's no parking lot. You're going to need a permit. Permit costs have like doubled, and they're charging for the parking spots outside. This is all just recently, and why did the permit cost double? It's not like they went out and hired, triple the staff. Like they just decided all of a sudden the city of Toronto instead of a permit, which used to cost maybe 2 years ago, $1,200 for a road closure. It's about $3,500. So that's tripled. And now they, have something called rodars. There's an extra 500. Now they're sending us, they closed these parking meters. There's an extra 500. All of a sudden, I've got to explain to you, my customer, who last year maybe I would have charged $2,500 for the permit, made $1,000 because my team had to do a traffic plan to present to the city, put a whole bunch of hours into it. Now my dead costs are like quadrupled, and I've got to explain that to you. And then how do I pay my team and for their time to on top of that to just to get you to your permit to get my crane to your job site? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's ridiculous.
So with that, do you ever think, because you speak to a lot of business owners and with a lot going on right now, you think into the future and project, but does it get to the point where like there's no incentive for you to continue growing your business to beyond a certain point because like a lot of that money is being taxed, the additional headaches, the
100%.
grievance. Like does it cap your like potential in a way because you're no longer incentivized to continue growing?
Yes, you know
You know?
what? I think especially in this city, and it's an expensive city to operate in. Toronto's like a little New York. It's like they say if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. That's the kind of city we're in. It's very competitive. We're very, it's a big city. There's a lot going on. There's but the costs are high. Cost of living is high. Everything, the people wages, everything is up there. But at the end of the day, yes, profitability has become more of a challenge. Hopefully, we'll see some positive numbers this year. It's hard to project without really sitting down to look at it, be prepared to look at it, but sometimes you do question whether or not are you growing have you grown the business too much? I guess one of my challenges right now is obviously I spent a lot of money on a lot of big cranes. It got to the point where my accountant advised me, hey, slow down because your cash flow, you're going to have cash flow issues because unless I had a big bankroll behind me, like say, for example, some people are lucky enough to have born into a family where they've got 50 years of infrastructure behind them and properties that they own, and they don't have to worry so much about cash flow. And I'm sure they have their own challenges, don't get me wrong, but that's not the way that I started my business. We started from the ground up with one boom truck. We built it from the ground up. So the only people that have actually invested and helped me grow my business have been the banks. And before they were my best friend, and now they're kind of working against us. So the times have changed. They're being more stringent. They're more difficult to deal with. They don't, they are trying to push out the people that are higher risk out of the country, or not out of the country, but out of their banking system. They want to, say, for example, you would have dealt with a TD or a Scotia or RBC or one of the top 5 banks, National Bank, whoever it is you deal with. They're seeing the risk in the economy and they're pulling back. So that's one reason why it's going to prevent a lot of growth for a lot of companies, because 10 years ago they were competing to lend us money. They were, the economy was strong. We're kicking ass and taking names, and they were hungry to lend us money. Whereas now, it's, not only are they trying to pull back for a lot of companies, but they're scared. They've got cold feet. None of them want to. They're trying to get rid of people. Never mind lend them more money. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where I see it. I see the writing on the wall. It's like they want to scrutinize everything, and they want to take a look at whereas before you just hand them a year end every year. Now they want monthly reporting, quarterly reporting.
Yeah. So seeing this now, how do you position yourself, like high level, over the next few years with what's going on?
Well,
Because there's no
even
signs of it improving on the the government
even over
side.
the last 2 years, I've really limited spending. On bigger cranes. With my erection company, we bought one brand new big, huge Liebherr. It's a 350-ton crane. It was like $3.5 million. It's a very expensive investment. But other than that, Liftall and Arlington Crane, Earl's Crane, and all of the other, we've backed off on trying to expand. Um, we've got different challenges as well. Sometimes having more equipment than men, because getting operators has been a challenge. We're a unionized company. We have to take what the union will give us, and we've got our name on the list, and it's like we're lucky to get a guy here and there. So we're losing more guys than we're getting back from the union to these infrastructure jobs that Carney's created. You know what I mean? Like all these small fusion generators, or whatever the heck they are. They're doing. There's a huge project going on over at Darlington, and so we're losing a lot of our tradesmen. It's hard to find good crane operators, and some of them, I guess, want to go and work the 412s or whatever it is, and sit easy and catch a break and get it while the getting's good over there, and which has made it a bigger challenge for our types of companies that are out here, pounding the pavement.
Yeah, so just on a quick note on that, one of let's just say, common friend of ours. I remember even me when I was growing my business, he always used to tell me, and me and Charlie actually just had this conversation in my office about last week, because a lot of people have scaled, right? And like you said too, COVID, everything just skyrocketed, right? Like we were an essential business as well, so nothing was going to close us down. I think we were I think maybe for like a week and a half, we just didn't know where to send guys, and everybody was at home when it initially popped off. And then after that, we just said, fuck it. Like nothing's, it's either life or death, like you're going to have to kill me to stop, So if this is what it really is, let it kill me, because, we're out there. And what happens? Like you naturally enlarge, you naturally start scaling. But I think in times like this, again, getting back to our mutual friend / family member, what he said to me as I was growing the business is, he goes, look, there's something really important to really know. There's two types of companies that make it, right? It's the small and the extremely large. If you're caught in between, your overhead is just going to fucking eat you up. And month over month, you're going to start looking at yourself, and you're going to start looking at your books and wondering, is this worth it? You know what I mean? Is doing this amount of work worth it? Because you're caught in limbo in between the two, right? The really large companies have their processes, their procedures, and they have the amount of work that, they've learned it down to like a science where, they're bringing in, let's just say 100 million a year, right? Their overhead costs are, call it 20 million a year, but this is like a constant thing, and I'm talking overhead in terms of like their office, their, again, their vehicles, their loans, whatever the case may be.
Yep.
But when you're in the scaling period, if the rates do go up like it did right now, and you're caught in between, which is basically like you're like a medium-sized company, what starts to happen is you're working hard because you're pounding the pavement, you're trying to grow the business, and month over month, you started noticing, where the fuck is this profit going, right? And I think it's because in order to scale a business, you have to put those pieces in play in order to get there. So you have to make the initial investment in order for that company to start growing.
Yes.
And when you're making those investments, whether it's hiring more bodies, right, buying more equipment, and a lot of times, like in your case, they go hand in hand, right? I notice a lot of guys, they get caught in the middle and they just don't know which way to go. And getting back to like our common friend, who obviously has done extremely well for himself in life, I found that a valuable lesson where it's like, man, you either want to stay at 20 or less, you know what I mean? Or you're going to say, fuck it, and you're going to go for 100+ employees. Yeah. You know what I mean? But just understand what both of those bring, right? Because when you're small, the only reason why you wanted to scale was because you were making money hand over fist, and you're missing out on opportunities because you're not big enough. So what do? Naturally, you start scaling in order, getting more guys in order to take on this more work. But the one hidden factor that comes behind there is the overheads. So if you don't reach that goal to go from here to here, right, and you get caught in the middle, that's where those overheads start to eat at you, and the cash
you invest
flow.
A lot of money. Invest a lot of money. It's like, there's a lot of keys to making that puzzle complete, right? So
and again, like you said too, what you alluded to was, what people don't understand as well is, as you start scaling and you start getting into these larger jobs, you start buying the machinery, you start hiring more guys, you have to pay for that all up front, but now there's a delay in getting paid. There's a 4-month delay in getting paid. You see what I'm saying? So again, that's where the guys get caught in the middle, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, I tried it and it's not worth it. But one thing you have to understand, it's you either got to stay small, right? Or you got to fucking go for it, right? Because if you're going to stop in the middle to take a breath and look around and be like, fuck, what am I doing here? That's where you're going to get caught with your pants down.
Yeah, definitely. I've been kind of, at a point where, obviously, if I had a large investment behind me, I would be able to run with it and expand. But sometimes those are opportunities that present themselves in life, or sometimes it doesn't. So I'm in a situation where I always did have the aspirations to expand and go even bigger, take over the city. I definitely have the balls. So, but there had to come a point where you got to listen to your the people that are the intelligent people behind me. I have a very good accountant. He started to point out, slow down on the purchasing. The capital expenditures are gonna start to catch up. Your cash flow is gonna suffer. It's gonna give you don't want to bankrupt yourself. You don't want to put yourself in a position where you can't afford to pay your people or pay your suppliers or pay whoever. So those are challenges those are growing pains that you start to realize as you become a better business owner, as you become in the business longer and longer. You start to be able to look at things about amortization of the equipment and write-offs and understanding how cash flow works. It's like so hard to explain. People that work for you look back and they think, oh, this guy's making a fortune, and they're even thinking this in years when you're losing money. You know what I mean? All they see is the wheels turning and the dollars and cents rolling in, but they don't realize all of the expenses and all of the taxes and everything that's involved, and what's actually the bottom line and in the books at the end of the year. Sometimes it takes somebody that's educated, an actual accountant, to be able to sit down and really lay it out for you and explain it to you. And this is how it really works. Business is a lot more complicated than meets the eye. You're not going to just look at something and be able to tell that which is a good business is which is a bad business.
That's the key,
100%.
right? Having that team that you trust that can gather and provide the right information.
Yes, yeah.
And it just, it's information gathering, and it's, basing your decision on that information. But at the end of the day, that decision is on you. But if you have the right team that is proactive and actually provides good
Sometimes
information.
certain people don't understand it. Like an accounting firm that's usually dealing with or even a bank. The banks, they look at my business. They don't understand my business. They're used to dealing with manufacturers in Ontario.
Yeah.
I'm not a manufacturing business. How do I hand you a projection? It's like you want me to foresee a crystal ball of the future of what's going to happen in the city and how
Yeah.
busy it's going to be. That's not the way the world turns. It's not I can't hand you a projection based. I'm guessing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah, what do you
it's a
do?
waste.
Hire an economist to come in and do a full.
Even then, it's like it's a rental business. You're not, there's it's a competitive industry. I'd say 75% of my business is booked the day before. So how
Yeah,
do I give you a projection on what's going to happen next month?
yeah,
Not going to
And
happen.
it's
You know what I
also
mean?
too with the accountant, like speaking on them, it's recognizing when you've outgrown somebody as well. The accountant that you start with when you're a small company may not be the accountant that's going to carry you through to becoming a
I
medium-sized company to a large
I've been
company.
blessed. I've been blessed because obviously my family being in the business, it has had its pros and cons. So
I wanted to get into, you mentioned it a couple times on how difficult it is right now to, hire people. You lost a few guys due to some projects. One of the headlines you've been seeing now in the last few years is, the skilled labor shortage. What are you seeing? What's your take on that? Is there a shortage in your industry, and how do you navigate that?
Um, always it's a constant challenge that we've always had in this industry was finding men. The union's been trying hard to train and put more people into the industry, but there has been times when they have held it up for us, and it's been a bit difficult. Um, you know, when we see them at a golf tournament or whatever, and we're talking to them, talking to the right guys that are running the program. They say things like, "Oh, we didn't want to flood the industry." It's like we seem to always be in a situation where everybody's poaching each other's men. So I don't understand video conference call. I don't understand where we're getting where people are getting these ideas. Um, you know, that we're gonna flood the industry and it's gonna be inundated with operators. Right now, there may be people on the list. There's been a slowdown, but for the last like 10 years, it's been nothing but a growth state. It's been a struggle to attain men. It's been there'd be infrastructure projects firing up where they have shutdowns out in Alberta. Guys, there'd be jumpers who would leave a well-oiled machine where guys working 50, 60 hours a week here, but they want to go and make that big money on a shutdown project where they're working 5/12s and getting paid ridiculous amounts of money to go live on a camp somewhere in Alberta. May not be something you or I would consider, like who would want to leave their wife and their family. Who knows what the neighbors are doing when you're gone. But at the end of the day, we're constantly in a struggle keep the machines manned. Right now, I guess the rest of the industry has had a bit of a slowdown, so that's been a little bit of a change. I haven't been able to acquire anybody off the list in Toronto. Luckily, I have yards in Hamilton and Niagara Falls. I've kind of diversified my home bases to accommodate not having to travel so far depending on that. I've got customers all over. So we're constantly able to trying to pull from different corners to try to fill these seats, but not everybody has those same opportunities. Like I have other companies that I work with who are just based in Toronto. They can't pull from the Hamilton Hall. They can't pull from different places to try to acquire manpower. So it's just constantly a struggle and having to juggle. Luckily, I was I had made some bold moves and acquired a crane company that was based in Hamilton for a long time. And if it wasn't for that and me being able to pull men from that hall and able to help fill my seats in the Toronto yard, it would have really hurt my business. So if the wheels, you're paying for all this equipment, if you can't put men in the seats, you end up subbing the work. You make a 10% on that or whatever it is, but it's not going to pay the bills.
I'm curious, what does the union do to bring more people into the industry?
So they have a training school in Oakville and one in Morrisburg. They've even gone as far as to start training them to drive now too. So we had a real big problem with a lot of the union apprentices that they were supplying weren't even able to drive. In order to become a union apprentice, you have to have an AZ license. But even if the guy says went out and got his AZ license, that doesn't mean that he's going to be able to go and fire up a tractor trailer with 100,000 pounds of counterweight on the deck and start driving down the street. Like, it's not your average bread truck. You know what I'm saying? This is heavy equipment that we're hauling. It takes people with some definite driver skill. So there's so many challenges that we face with the apprentices. They'd be sending us guys that were green, couldn't even drive out of the yard.
Sorry, Jeffrey, just to clarify. So how does your union do it? Do they do an intake every year? Because I know that's how the plumbing union does. They would take in like about 500 people, then they narrow it down to 50, and out of those 50, maybe 20 or 30 get into the union, and then maybe 10 get employed. The rest are on the waiting list. Is it similar to that?
So to be totally honest with you, I don't know exactly how the intake works for our union. I know that they're constantly trying to pull in and bring people into the trade. But I wouldn't say, like, I know there's other trades out there that are suffering more, like if, they say bricklaying is a dying trade. There's less and less young generations that want to do it. I would say that our trade is sought after because it's one of the higher paid trades. I think we have one of probably the best union contracts out of all of the trades. Our guys, everything after 8 hours is double time, before 7, after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it's all double time. So the guys are, sometimes I have apprentices that are making more money than some of my operators because we got them working so many hours. It's definitely a lucrative trade to be in. It's just been hard to find and fill the seats and get skilled men. Not to say that there different times we've had different problems, but it seems to be a constant issue ever since I've been in business, is trying to find enough men to fill the seats.
Yeah. I think over the next like 10 years, 15 years, you're going to see a lot more people coming into the trades just because that's where the value is. That's where, like, now with like AI and technology, all these traditional white collar jobs, they're not as valuable anymore.
Yeah.
And so I think at the end of the day, the market's going to easily decide that and shift more people into the trades because that's just where the money's going to be.
Well, I mean, hopefully, and hopefully I don't have to wait until I'm retired to see that. But
Might come faster than we think.
yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, right now I'm seeing a lot of, like you were talking earlier about diversifying, all of these tower crane operators, they can't just jump. Their ticket doesn't allow them to just jump in a mobile crane and be licensed. So a lot of these guys are calling me now and saying they want to come back and apprentice with me. If they do an apprenticeship for for 1 year after you're a tower crane operator and you have your crane ticket, you could do an apprenticeship for one year and then try to write your exam to become a crane operator, mobile crane operator. I'm getting a lot of those types of calls. Those guys are trying to diversify now because, there used to be 300 tower cranes in the air and 400 tower cranes in the air, and now there's 50. So, there's 400 guys that are looking for work. And probably they're swampers as well, So they're guys that were their apprentice that was on the ground doing their rigging and radioing and whatnot. So, that'll probably help us a little bit. Again, probably just a temporary fix. As soon as this little bit of a lull that we're probably going to see over the next year or two with the breaking ground, forming and whatnot. Obviously, there hasn't been a lot of excavation happening. Not a lot of people breaking ground. The developers have kind of been holding back a little bit. Obviously, all related to interest rates, all the housing prices, everything that's going on with all these condos, influx of condos in the market, and they're not selling. It's kind of put a halt on all of this high-rise construction that was booming for so long. And I think what's happening now is we're going to see probably maybe a year or two lull before it really starts to kick off again and hit and go how it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Like Toronto was growing like exponentially faster than most of the rest of everywhere else in the world.
I'm curious, like historically, like during these like down periods, you see a lot of consolidation happening in the market. Are you seeing that in the crane industry?
Even though you own 5 of the major companies.
Well, you're the person to ask. That's what I'm asking.
Getting back. Hold on, before you answer that question, getting back to having balls, right, Jeff?
I haven't seen a lot of it myself, boys.
What? Your balls?
Yeah, no, I'm not that fat. I can still see them.
No, I'm saying
forward a little bit.
I'm saying, you alluded to like having balls, and it's like, getting back to that consolidation, like for our listeners, like you own 5 of the major crane companies. Yeah. So, getting back to like what you were saying, it's like, that takes balls to go out there and do that, right? And consolidate, like you said.
Definitely. Sometimes more balls than brains. But I've managed to learn from a lot of my mistakes, and God willing, I've always found the right path and been able to make the best of whatever I've had to do, and not never to try to. I've had help along the way. Everybody's they know I'm definitely a good person, and I see it through. So if I say I'm the type of guy that if we're gonna do something, we can operate off a handshake. You don't need a written contract with me. I don't let anybody down. I've got a very good reputation that way, and that precedes me. So I've been very blessed to have a lot of great loyal customers and developed amazing relationships with the right people around the city. So work is always seems to like I get a lot of like even half of the phone calls I get are usually referrals. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But are
So
you seeing, getting back to Costa's question though, are you seeing any
yeah, so I mean,
diversification?
no. Back to Costa's original question. My apologies. No, I haven't seen a lot of consolidation happening. Nothing that I've seen in my industry that's ramped up. If anything, you might see some of these people get into situations where they can't afford to pay their bills. You might see people going out of business because of the situation happening in the economy. But I mean, Toronto's a pretty heavy. It's a big city, so even with the backing off of the high rise and not seeing a lot of that work, infrastructure work's picked up a little bit. They're behind on the infrastructure with the waterways, and they've got some catching up to do with that and the road building and everything, and that's going on. The government is trying to invest into the infrastructure and the economy, so that does help a little bit. And so it's kept the wheels turning. Everybody's trying to, like, it's a tough time to be profitable. That's for sure. So, I think the biggest issue right now that we're all facing is not even being that's like, I'm not slow, but what are we doing with all these gas prices are going through the roof? Obviously what's happening in the Gulf is influencing it. And then yesterday, I saw something on somebody sent me a thing where Carney hit us with another 16% carbon tax, this hidden carbon tax, which is affecting us at the pumps. I guess he thought maybe now's a good time. Well, they doubled the diesel prices. Hey, let's sneak in an extra 16% tax on top of that. Like, I don't even
At
understand
what
how
point, yeah, at what point do we everybody just like stand up
Yeah,
and
we all
just
seem
say
to
like,
take a line down.
yeah,
Everybody
exactly.
I talk to,
It's enough.
everybody I talk to is on the same page, the same way we think about it. But for some reason, they keep getting all the votes, and it's like somebody's magically putting in those ballots. That's just my opinion. On my strongest times, and everybody that's a business owner and everybody in the city that I've ever talked to would praise the Harper government. That guy, everything was good when he was in power. As far as I'm concerned, I know that sometimes politics and religion is not something to be talking about, and because everybody has their own opinion. But just speaking from just a strictly business owner's perspective, it's been very taxing, and no pun intended, but very taxing on our bottom line to be operating under a liberal government in this city. So,
This long, yeah.
yeah,
And
it's like
it's
the
crazy,
last
and it's
3 or 4 years, our costs, our internal costs haven't grown, but our costs are for permits, for gas, for taxes, for anything that has to do with taxes, it has increased, 10,
Taxing is
20%. So,
taxing is a fucking
you know,
understatement.
and a company
yeah.
like this, you're lucky to clear a 15 or 20% profit at the end of the year in your best year. But if they've increased all these costs by 20%, where does that leave me at the end of the year? You know what I mean?
No, and and this is like very telling too that you're in the crane business, because I remember in what 2015, right? Everybody used to say, I think even up till COVID, right? Like, correct me if I'm wrong, we had the most cranes per capita in the world, which meant that our economy was fucking rolling, right?
Yeah.
Well, when you don't see the cranes going up, right? Regardless of what they want to tell you on the news or anything like that, that's just a telltale sign of where our economy's heading, right?
Yeah.
Less cranes, basically directly impact what's happening in our economy, right? If the cranes are not going up, that means that things are not moving, right? That means that costs are going up. That means hard times are ahead, right? This is the reality, right? When you don't see cranes going up, when you don't see like you said, if we had 300 cranes going up, 400 a year, you know, and now, you know, you're barely scratching 50, what does that tell you? And then again, our costs are going up, and what? Now you're going to just sneak in more tax when people are already fucking, you know, like up to their neck. And getting back to, I know what everybody's going to say, whoever's not a business owner, it's you know, oh, the rich are just, they're complaining that they're not getting more money, but people have to understand that it's the people that have put their balls on the line, okay, to create something and employ, right, to create jobs. So if you're not giving the business owners the opportunity to create jobs, then what taxes are you talking about? Do you want to just tax everybody out of owning a company, or tax everybody to a point where, you know, me and you, we've had this conversation offline before. How many people are leaving the country for these same fucking reasons? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just gets to a point.
Got good friends that I grew up with, business owners. They've actually decided to sell. He still owns his business building here, but he sold his personal house. He took that money. He moved his family to Texas. Was able to, you know, sell his house here, move into a mansion in Texas with a shop and everything. So now he's got 2 business locations, and slowly but surely, almost all of his business is moving over to the United States. You know, he's happy. He's like, he thinks we're idiots for staying, you know? I always thought it was like all this conspiracy theory. He was complaining about Trudeau and the Liberal government and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, I kind of just brush it off the shoulder. I don't have time in my day to think about that kind of stuff. But at some point, you start to think when you keep seeing all these increases, all these taxes that we're getting hit, it's like, what are we doing it for? Why are we going to stay here? You know, like, there's no place like home. Don't get me wrong. When I go on vacation, I travel around the world. I go to Europe. I go to the United States or wherever. I'm there for a couple of weeks. I miss being home. You know what I mean? I miss my family. I miss my friends. I miss the food that I like to eat. Don't necessarily miss the minus 30, minus 40 weather that we get hit with in the winter. But, you know, maybe we'll get lucky with some global climate change that they keep promising. But to be honest with you, I mean, I just kind of foresee, you know, you know, you see these stats, there's hundreds of thousands of people leaving our country every year. You know, we need to be growing, but they're not making it lucrative. They're not giving us incentives to do so. You know, somebody running for office should be cleaning up right now by promising these incentives and a plan of action to show this is what we're going to do to incentivize business. Because if you get business incentivized, then it will keep the rest of the people fed. Everybody will have more jobs. Everybody will have more opportunity. Everybody will make more money. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. So people need to understand that, like, we can't just live in this system where we're going to like expect these handouts and it's going to last forever. It's not going to happen. You know, they learn that.
Like, I'm pulling this up here. You know, people vote with their feet, right? And we're seeing that right now in Canada. Like the share of population of entrepreneurs, self-employed, is falling right now. It's going off a cliff. And like, you know, we all have these conversations every day about business owners, families that are, you know, talking about leaving the country, and a lot of them are. So
I think at the end of the day, you know, I had this discussion with a couple of friends of mine. You know, every once in a while, we've got our little card group of buddies where we have our little race card group. I used to call it something King of the Streets or something was the group name, and now I got it street. I renamed it Street Politics because it seems like every night all we do is talk about and argue about, you know, Carney and the Liberal government. And, you know, I got one guy that's, you know, just all about, you know, how great Carney is. And don't get me wrong. I mean, obviously, he might just be the man for the job, but maybe.
What job?
Carney.
Maybe a fucking swamper.
Listen, the guy's a businessman, you know. Like, I mean, I agree with a lot of what Pierre Poilievre says. I don't like I want to see reform. I want to see change. I don't want to see people's doors getting kicked in and people being robbed and they're scared to defend themselves, and criminals being let out of jail like within 24 hours. You know,
We've turned
like
into Gotham.
yeah, it became the Wild West out here for a while. Like I've had many vehicles stolen out of my driveway. I live in Richmond Hill. Um, my wife's Corvette was stolen. My Escalade was stolen. It got to the point where, so I had so many bad instances happen all at once that I was worried about losing my insurance. I had to pull all of my vehicles off of my company insurance and put them all under personal, because it could possibly have affected my business that I had so many claims happening all at once. The last time somebody stole my Escalade, I had a tracker in it. The cops wouldn't even go get it. I had to go and get it myself. Can you imagine? It's the Wild West out here.
Yeah, but
So
Jeff, like you talk about they need to incentivize, and I couldn't agree with you more. But they're actually doing the opposite. They're punishing us. Right?
yeah,
It's not even like they're making it difficult. They're actually going beyond that and punishing us. And I feel like the bigger me and Johnny have gotten, the more they push through the ringer and the harder they make it for us. And it's almost like they're trying to make it so that we just throw the towel and we just give up and we stop.
yeah.
Right?
Sometimes it feels that way, right? And maybe
Yeah.
that's what it is. Maybe it's all about control,
And I
right?
think it just comes down to the type of person you are, whether you're gonna stay and fight, and we might be stupid for that, or you're just gonna say, fuck it, pack it in, and I'm out of here. I'm gonna go to the States, I'm gonna go to South America, whatever it is.
Yep.
Well,
And
look for everybody listening. Sorry to interrupt, Jeff, but for everybody listening, I saw it this morning, and I know obviously, I'm like in Toronto, but what was the price at the pumps today? It's fucking ridiculous.
yeah,
Oh,
What was
I
it?
know that.
I saw it at 180. I saw it at 185 point something. That was
Yeah,
gas.
diesel.
And
Yeah,
diesel
diesel's
is
even more.
yeah,
it's over
right?
two.
So,
So,
that affects business. Like I'm hearing trucking companies charging a 50% fuel surcharge. Could you imagine you charge, I don't know, whatever they charge, $150, $200 an hour for trucking, a 50% fuel surcharge. So they're saying, no, I got to charge you $300 an hour for trucking because the fuel costs have gone up.
yeah, and
Our,
and then what does that do? What does that do? Even though we're here to talk about construction, but what does that do across the board, right? Your food
yeah,
goes up, right?
yeah,
Your food goes up.
everything.
Construction
It's
goes
gonna,
up.
it's gonna
Construction
affect,
goes up.
everybody. It's gonna go right down the line. And then on top of all of that, the guy went in and just snuck in a 16% increase on with the carbon tax. This invisible tax that he talked about or whatever. How about that for icing on the cake? And like, why isn't everybody standing up and saying, calling for some sort of referendum or whatever it is that happens when people need to say, okay, you know what, it's time for change. We need to vote in a different, leader because this is getting out of hand.
But
It's like,
but what was it? What was it? I saw something that there was almost a civil war when they originally implemented a 2% tax just on goods. You know what I mean? And now it's like, think about everything we're taxed on, right? Like
yeah,
we've accepted, okay, as the economy grows, all right, you need some money in taxes to pay for, infrastructure and this and that and this and that. But at what point, like now, let's be honest, Jeff, for everybody listening, getting back to people think that we swim in money, right? The cost to run a company legitimately, right? Legitimately, the safety, the insurances, you want the office staff, you want responsive, you want this, you want
you
that.
can't cut corners. Those
No.
days are long gone.
So our let's say, the guidelines that we got to follow to run a safe and proper company have gone through the roofs. Costs have gone through the roofs, right? Obviously, people are in hardship. So obviously, you're seeing that it's a much more competitive game out there, which means that a lot of people are just turning dollars. Then again, if you're just getting jobs to turn dollars just to keep the lights on, and now you have to put it on a line of credit because you've grown to a certain size, right, to employ X amount of people, right? To basically feed the economy. You got to put on a line of credit. That line of credit, the interest rates have gone up. You got to wait 4 months to get paid on that job that you just took to turn money to keep everybody fed and everybody going, right?
Yep.
Again, you know, net
affects
at the end of the
bottom line
year.
at the end of the year.
Exactly. At the end of the year, you know, when you have a loss, you know what I mean? But guess what? The government has taken their money. Everybody's taken their money, right?
Yep.
The gas stations have taken their money up front.
Yep. They've sent that money to Ukraine and wherever else they decided to send it. And, you know, you still see people living in tents under our bridges.
And it's not helping. And it's not helping the bottom line. And then getting back to, like I said, right? There's two ways you can tell your economy is doing well, right? Number one, you talk to demolition companies, right? There's one huge demolition and excavating company right around my office. I don't want to name who it is, but you know, I heard like you know, mid last year they let go of 70% of their workforce. Why? Because there's no buildings coming down. There's no big holes being dug, right? And then getting back to you, Jeff, luckily you're diversified. And I think that that's the main topic that people should take away today is diversification in this economy is one of the biggest things that you have to be, you know, doing well when you're running a business is because if you don't see cranes going up, right, that is just telling, that's just a telling sign of what's happening to our economy.
Foreseeing what's happening with the economy, which is only gonna get worse before it gets better.
100%.
All right,
you know,
boys.
I don't think we've seen the bottom of it. But not to end off on a negative note. As I said, you know, we are having a stronger year than ever. So luckily, with the diversification that I've done over the last couple of years, and you know, constantly pressuring my team to change and being able to diversify and take on more. You know, you got to work harder to make a dollar these days, and everybody's got to do it together. Otherwise, you could possibly fail, and that's you know, that's not something that I'm willing to do. You know, I've got a lot of families that depend on taking home a paycheck from me every month or every week, and you know, we've all got to kind of string together and make it happen.
Yeah, as we always say, there's no plan Bs, and at the end of the day, you have to just focus on what you can control. In any downturn, any economy, there's winners, there's losers,
That's it.
which means there's opportunity. So you know, you gotta think in that mindset.
Don't be worried about what the competition's doing. You keep an eye on your team.
Exactly. With that being said, Jeff, want to be mindful of your time. You probably declined at least 70 calls during this episode.
Been going off the hook. Murphy's Law. It's always gonna every time you know every time we got a plan, you know, we're gonna get hit with about 50 extra phone calls. And not to worry, boys, I'll catch up. It's still early in the day.
For sure.
We always end it off.
We always end it off with a question. If you can put on a billboard, a message, a business lesson, an insight for every contractor in the world to see, what would it say?
I'd have to think about that one.
No, you're on the spot, Jeff. You're on the spot. One slogan you can put for everybody to see.
Full tilt, buddy. Full tilt.
That's it. Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind. Full tilt.
Yeah, full tilt.
That's it.
I love it.
Okay,
all right,
boys.
Guys, appreciate it. For anyone listening, got this far, we appreciate it, Jeff. Thank you.
Cheers.
The
Thanks for having
insights, I think a lot of people listening are going to get a ton of value from this, so we do appreciate it.
Beauty.
For anyone else listening, if you got this far, if you are looking to streamline operations, save costs, you know, save hours and time, do check out Jobtable. It can help streamline your business operations for any trade or construction business. There's a 14-day free trial, so check it out. And with that, boys, really appreciate it. Jeff, thanks again, man.
Anytime.
We'll talk soon.
Thanks for coming on,
boys.
Jeff.